BBI principal Raila Odinga is an old hand in politics. Some even call him a guru in politics. And based on the very first promotional tour of meeting the people to promote the BBI, shortly after it was released in Kisii recently, you will remember that that first promotion was a hit. It took many Kenyans by storm, the way the president was welcomed to Kisumu. With the kind of enthusiasm, many argued, he cannot even receive in his own home district, home turf. Not to mention the rally that followed, the president's grand entrance into Kisumu. Many people thought that it was going to be plain sailing for the BBI. With this kind of start, some people even said, hii kitu itapita saa 12 asubuhi. Well, barely 2 weeks later, what is emerging is a very different story. After the euphoria of Kisumu City, it seems that the BBI has sailed into some serious storms. In my view, not enough to sink the ship, but nevertheless, serious. Now, so far, a lot of that opposition can be traced back to Deputy President William Samoei Ruto, whom we know has been opposed to the BBI before it even became a solid report. Long before any single proposal had even been inked onto a notebook or notepad. But on Friday, two well-known politicians emerged as being strongly opposed to the BBI, who cannot be directly linked, at least not immediately, to the Deputy President. This, of course, our former Justice Minister, Martha Karua, who is also leader of the Narc party, and the current Makueni governor, serving his second last term, Kivutha Kibwana. And some people asking, could there be a link? Could there be an alliance of sorts in the background between these two politicians and the Deputy President's camp? Well, I'll tackle that question towards the end of this video. But let's start first with what these two politicians said. Martha Karua, who is the leader of the Narc-Kenya party, said that what needs to be done is fixing the country's collapsed electoral system, and fighting corruption. And to do this too, we do not need to change the constitution. Kivutha Kibwana, on the other hand, said that our main problem is ethnicity, which runs our politics. And of course that cannot be fixed by amending the constitution. Clearly, the two politicians were reading from the same script. And they said, because the two Building Bridges Initiative principles had treated Kenyans with contempt, Kenyans should pay back by completely rejecting the BBI. Now, let us start by appreciating the fact that both these two Kenyans are lawyers by profession. And so, many will assume that because they're lawyers, and we are talking about the issues of the Constitution, then they must know what they're talking about. Kivutha Kibwana has lectured law at the University of Nairobi. He is even an alumni of the world-renowned Harvard University in the United States. Martha Karua's experience and understanding of the law is difficult to contest. So, are they spot on? My answer? Tuliza boli. Come slowly. Because for starters, in the country called Kenya, we have a long history of very qualified legal minds being something completely different when they start talking about politics. In many instances in the past, many have completely forgotten, thrown into the dustbin, their legal background. We have had lawyers in their efforts to be politically correct, supporting very unconstitutional ideas. And in some instances, some lawyers have even told us lies during the day concerning the law, all for the sake of political convenience. And so, based on what has happened in the past, it would not be wise to jump to conclusions or to make assumptions. No. This is Kenyan politics. But there's something else that troubles me the most about these latest statements from these two lawyer politicians. And it is the following. It is very true that we have a problem with the elections. Yeah, the people vote and the computer decides. And it is true that one of our major problems in our politics is ethnicity, tribalism. Now they're telling us the BBI cannot fix those problems. So the BBI can't do it. So what will do it? What are the ideas? What ideas have they brought forward to solve those problems? Yes, they tell us the BBI is bad. They tell us the BBI won't work. So what will work? You know, I get very suspicious of politicians who criticize something and then they don't suggest an alternative. Especially because in politics, opportunities are very difficult to come by. And to make matters worse, many times these opportunities come when somebody is not ready. Somebody is not quite ready to grab the opportunity. But then in politics, you must grab those opportunities because you don't know when the next opportunity will come. So here we have an opportunity. Yeah, it's not the best. It's not a perfect solution. But it is an opportunity to reduce our problems with elections, our problems with ethnicity. It is a solution which is on the table. Yeah, although imperfect. And what you're telling us is that we trash it, but you don't have an alternative. You don't have another suggestion, yeah, that we can take up in abandoning what we already have on the table. Now, I'm well aware that many on this channel do not support the BBI. I'm very much aware of that, including a big brother I'm very fond of. Yeah, and we have a very good relationship. He doesn't support the BBI. And that's very okay. Yeah, because we're not robots. We don't all have to agree, even if we're friends. Yeah, we can disagree, but we're still friends. And he's still my favorite big brother. But having said that, I cannot refuse to table what I have seen in the past. And a trap which Kenyans could easily fall into yet again. Because talk is cheap. Yeah, politicians can talk. But then when it comes to practical, day-to-day situations on the ground, they fall short. Let me give you a brief story to illustrate this. You can call me naive, but to this day, I still believe that when Mwai Kibaki was elected to the presidency in 2002, he genuinely wanted to change the country for the better. That one I believe from the bottom of my heart. And he was talking a lot. And he had very many ideas he was talking about. And many promises he made. One in particular was that he was going to get rid of something called provincial administration in Kenya forever. Mwai Kibaki promised us that chiefs, administrators in the villages, we would never see again. And we would only be dealing with elected leaders. And I believe he was genuine when he was making this promise. But you know what happened? When he became president, his administration became very shaky. And although he started out on the wrong footing with the late President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, his predecessor, things got so bad that he had to seek out Moi and ask him for his advice. And Moi gave him some advice on how to have a stable government using something called provincial administration. And Kibaki implemented Moi's advice, and his government stabilized considerably. And that is why, as the new 2010 constitution was being implemented, one of the first things that Kibaki did was to appoint county commissioners. Today we even have regional commissioners. Old provinces, remember that? And chiefs are still very much around. Provincial administration is still alive, very much alive and kicking. Bottom line, Mwai Kibaki promised us something that was not practical. In the Moi days, we hated the provincial administration because it was used to harass Kenyans. It was evil. Kenyans were fed up with it. And so Mwai Kibaki promised us to get rid of it. But he didn't have a viable alternative. And so, today, although not many people talk about it, we still have the provincial administration. Even Raila, who supported Kibaki in completely getting rid of the provincial administration, doesn't talk about it anymore. I haven't heard him talk about it for a very long time. I think the last I heard was 2012, when he promised that it would be gotten rid of. Anyway, we now have on the side of the BBI, Raila Odinga, who is very experienced. We have the president, who is running the country at the moment, and therefore knows a lot of things that Kibwana and Karua do not know. Just like Kibaki did not know before he took over the presidency that one would have to get a very viable alternative to get rid of provincial administration. So, who are you going to believe more? Let's just be very blunt and honest. The president and Raila Odinga put forward a proposal which they tell us will deal with a certain problem. And then we have other two politicians who are not in government, who may not have the same experience, telling us to trash that particular suggestion, although they're also not offering us an alternative. It would have been nice if they offered us at least another idea. In my view, the trap that we could easily fall into is the Mwai Kibaki trap of somebody making us a promise that there's no way they can keep, because they don't even understand how the current situation is. They don't intimately understand how government runs at the moment. To be honest, I'll take a suggestion from Deputy President William Samoei Ruto much more seriously. Because he has been in government. He has the experience. He knows a lot of insider details that many other politicians may not know. But sadly, so far, we have not had many ideas from the Deputy President. Only criticism. This is not good, this is bad. he has been acting like an opposition without any ideas of their own, which, based on experience, one should never trust. And that's not all. Martha Karua was bang in the middle of all the electoral fraud that took place in 2007. She was in Mwai Kibaki's camp. She was one of the president's chief legal advisors as the election was stolen from Raila Odinga in 2007. With all due respect to her, she should have some solid ideas of how we can stop this. And by the way, in 2013, I voted for Martha Karua for the presidency. I reasoned that where the country was at that time, the most important thing was to fully implement the 2010 Constitution. And out of all the presidential candidates at the time, in my view, I felt Martha Karua was the most qualified to make sure that the Constitution was fully implemented. And so I voted for her. I knew she was not going to win, but I can't vote without a reason. I can't vote without my conscience. So I gave her the benefit of the doubt, despite what had happened in 2007, and I voted for her. And I've told you that so that nobody will think that I'm just criticizing her for the sake of it. Or maybe because I can't vote for a woman. Yeah, because in Kenya, unfortunately, we have people with that kind of backward thinking. No, I'm not in that bandwagon. But what we have here are very serious issues. 2022 is just around the corner. Are we prepared to face those elections without at least making an attempt to correct what happened in 2017? Two experienced politicians are leading the BBI, and they're making some suggestions. So are we going to lose this opportunity because of emotion? Are we going to lose this opportunity because two politicians who do not have as much experience and who have not given us any other ideas are telling us to trash the BBI? Are we going to follow their lead? Does it make sense to do so? Those are the questions Kenyans need to ask themselves. And remember, it is much easier to criticize than to come up with your own solid ideas as an alternative to what you're criticizing. Finally, is there something going on behind the scenes between these two politicians and the DP Ruto camp? Despite the fact that both Martha Karua and Governor Kibwana have a reputation for being independent thinkers, despite that, there is also something else that usually happens in politics. Politicians like to join a wave in a certain direction. And many times they join this wave in the early stages so that they can be recognized as champions amongst the leading lights in that particular wave that ends up being popular. And of course, I'm talking about the anti-BBI wave, which would mean that even if they're not talking in secret, they're in the same bandwagon as the deputy president. I'm afraid that's what it is. You know, it should be very clear that the only way the BBI can be stopped is at this particular stage, before it passes through Parliament. Because once it's a referendum question, once it's out there for all of us to vote for it, then the game will change. Because we know that Raila Odinga is a guru in influencing the masses of Kenya. We know that the president also has a very huge political following, which he can easily rally behind the BBI. We also know that the two politicians, Raila Odinga and the president, have allies. They have other politicians allied to them, who in turn also have huge followings. And so if this reaches the referendum stage, most analysts believe it'll pass. And so the only place where it can be ambushed is where we are right now, before it reaches Parliament and before it's passed as a bill making way for the referendum. And so many politicians will take this opportunity to gather points, to score points ahead of the 2022 elections. And this, of course, is a selfish political motive. And so we need to ask the question, where will their selfish political motives leave ordinary Kenyans? Will Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans, benefit in any way, even as they fulfill their personal political motives? Will they? I don't think so. Now, Martha Karua and Kibwana are two Kenyan politicians with a very fascinating past, and I have plenty of videos on this channel on the two. I have prepared a very special playlist containing these videos for those of you who would like to understand a little more about the background of these two politicians who are now very much in the news because of their opposing views on the BBI. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing absolutely wrong with them opposing the BBI. But then with politicians, we know that there's always a motive. There's always an end game. And I believe this collection of videos is going to shed a lot of light. For those who would like to know more, read between the lines and make their own decisions concerning where this may be going. You can see a link on the top part of your screens right now. Use it and take in those videos. Thank you so much for opting to spend some time on this channel that carries analysis and videos that have stood the test of time. Because I wouldn't be referring you to old videos if some of those videos had information that has been proved wrong over time. Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.